Hi everyone, it's Aga from Eureka-exclusive, and I'm here with super fun beading tutorial for you. Before I get started, just a quick reminder to check out the rest of our channel, and if you like what you see, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss any of our fun tutorials. In this video, we're celebrating one of the most iconic duos in cinema last year, and some would say even ever, which is Elphaba and Glinda, and we're gonna be making this Wicked-inspired pendant with one of our new arrivals, this 27mm Krakovski crystal octagon stone in Aeronite, and it's absolutely spectacular. In person, it's so large, and we're gonna bezel it today. It's going to look lovely. We're also going to be using our other new arrival here. These are 3x4mm Chinese faceted rondelle beads in this lovely pink mixed color. As you can see, there's some lighter ones and some darker ones, and they are gonna look absolutely beautiful next to that green, because as we know, pink goes well with green, doesn't it? So in addition to this 27mm octagon stone crystal from Krakovski, you're also going to need a clasp if you're making a necklace like me. Well, it's kind of too large to be an earring really, because it's quite heavy for an earring. So I do recommend you make a pendant out of it. And for that, you're gonna need a clasp. I'm gonna use this quite elegant rose gold clasp. I already attached some jump rings to it. And in the beads department, you're gonna need 3 types of beads. You're gonna need some delicas or Toho treasures. You're gonna need some 11-ohs and some 15-ohs, and I'll be using Miyuki's. Now, if you don't have these particular colors of Miyuki seed beads, these crystal rondelles are so cute and beautiful that I think this pendant will look just as lovely with some silver colored seed beads or some even gold colored seed beads, depending on what you want. The effect will still be there, the green and the pink, right? So that's it for the beads. You're gonna need some needle, of course. I'll be using size 12. And I'll also be using my 4-pound Fairline in the color Crystal. Finally, some scissors to cut off the excess thread. Let's start beading. Okay, first off, we're starting with a bezel. We're going to make a more or less classic peyote bezel with delicas or Toho treasures. And to start, you're gonna need about half a wingspan of thread, and I'm not gonna cut it away from the spool because the other end is probably going to be useful for us later. Now I'm gonna pick up exactly 64 delicas. And I do suggest you count it twice or even 3 times to make sure it's exactly 64. Now you slide that down your thread. And I'm just gonna go through that first one and start beading. Now this is standard peyote, so you just pick up a single bead, you skip one bead, and you pass through the next one in the row as you go. It's gonna be a little loose in the beginning. You can go through all of the beads again, of course, but that's not necessary because there's gonna be tension on both sides of the thread eventually, so you don't have to worry about that. Again, I'm skipping one bead. And I'm gonna do that until I've made a full circle. Now this is gonna be my last bead in this row, and I'm gonna step right up to the next row through the first bead that I added newly in this row. There we go. I'm gonna go one more time. Only now, every second bead is conveniently elevated slightly, so I know exactly which bead I'm gonna pass through as I add my new beads. Here's my last bead in this row. I stepped up to the next row, and now we're going to do almost the same, only we're gonna put in 15-ohs every couple beads to achieve the start of our little kind of bendy moments, because as you can see, there's some angles there. So like here, 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 here. There are 2 there, and 2 here. So it's an octagon, so it has 8 of them. And we're gonna start making these corners sort of with 15-0. So I'm starting by putting in a 15-0, then 2 times a delica, 1 and 2, then again a 15-0, 2 delicas again, so 1 and 2, 15-0, and one more set of 2 delicas, that's 1 and 2, now a 15-0, and this is eventually going to be our top. Now we're going to put in 6 delicas in a row, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, now a 15-0, and we're gonna do the same as we did on the other side. So 2 delicas 3 times. 1, 2, with 15-0s in between them, of course. So a 15-0 now, 2 delicas again, 15-0, 2 delicas again, 15-0, and now you should be left with 6 slots for just delicas. Here's that last one. Now I'm going to do a normal row, but every time there's a 15-0, I'm going to put a 15-0 on each side of it. So I'm putting a 15-0 in now. Then I'm going to go with 1 delica and a 15-0 again. A 15-0 here. Delica, 15-0, 15-0, delica, and so on. That's the last bead in this row. It's a 15-0. I'm going to step up to the next row, and finally everything is going to start making sense, because I still want the entire form to be more like an oval, but I do want that front of the bezel to have some of those angles that this octagon stone has. So the only thing I'm going to be adding in this row are 15-0s to kind of tighten it all up, but every time there are 15-0s in those kind of dips here, I'm going to keep the dip and I'm not going to add anything in between the 15-0s that I just added in the previous row. So I added 1 15-0. Now I'm going to add another, and I'm going to go through that next 15-0 in here. But I'm not going to add a bead here. Instead, I'm going to go down this 1 15-0 and up the 15-0 on the other side, so that I can keep kind of this dip that is created here. Right, so now another 15-0 and one more in here, but I'm going to go through these 2 15-0s in this dip together, up the next 15-0 here, and I'll keep adding my 15-0s and skipping the dips. Here's my last bead in this row. I'm gonna go down through these next 2 15-0s. And as you can see, it's a little bit more oval shaped now. It has some angles to it. Now to reinforce this row and to add something extra, I'm actually going to add a delica on top of these little kind of pyramids that we have in here, or these little triangles. And I'm going to go down all the way through the 15-0s, so 3 15-0s down. Like that. Now 2 15-0s up. I'm gonna add another delica on top here. 3 15-0s down. Just like that. It's gonna make the side of our bezel look a little bit like a star. Now up through 2 15-ohs, adding a delica down through 3. And if you pull it together, they're gonna kind of bow down, and that will hold our cabochon in place as well. Now for the beads on the longer side of the octagon, I'm just gonna go 2 beads at a time until I've reached the other side to do the same. Alright, now that the front is fully reinforced, I'm gonna take my thread and take it to the back. So I'm just gonna go diagonally through the delica beads until I've reached that other side, and now's where you put in your stone. You want to slip it on there in the way so that the middle kind of triangle in here is right in the middle of the short side of the octagon, just like this. Alright, and now we're gonna go in the back and we're gonna just go around with 15-ohs. A full row of 15-ohs. And once you've made a full circle with the 15-ohs, it's time for another full circle with 15-ohs. Now the back side of the pendant is going to be a lot more oval, and it's not going to be as reflecting the octagon shape as the front, but it's going to be very, very pretty. So just stay on it and do another row of those 15-ohs to tighten it all up. Alright, that's done. Now we're gonna go every second 15-oh and we're gonna add, surprise, surprise, 15-oh. So I'm coming out of this one here and I'll add this one, but pass through 2 15-ohs at once to step down. Now I'm gonna step up the next 15-oh, just like so, and there's a dip that we're leaving there, and we're adding a new 15-oh. You can also go down by just 1 and then 2 up, right? Just like that, you're gonna end up with these little triangles, and we're gonna use them in a moment. So you add a 15-oh every second, so every other 15-oh here. Alright, I added the last 15-oh in this row. I'm now going to skip this dip here, and I'm gonna go on top of this first triangle that I made. So through the first 15-oh in this row that I added. And now we're gonna connect these top 15-ohs, so the 15-ohs from this previous row, with 3 delicas in between each. So I'm just passing through the next 15-oh here. Now as I am adding my last sequence of 3 delicas in here, I realize that I'm running out of thread. So I'm just gonna go through some more of these beads, tie a knot, weave in my tail, and use the other end of my thread that I left connected to the spool so that I can come back to it in precisely this situation. Now for the second part of the pendant, I put on more than half a wingspan of thread, but we're probably going to have to add some more anyways. So this one is coming out of this bead in here. So I'm just going to try to go forward diagonally through the beads to find myself in one of the delica sections that I just added before. And I want to come out of the middle delica in the sequence of 3. And now as you can see, I'm on the side here. Now we're going to be connecting the middle delicas, and on the side, I'm gonna do this with 3 15-ohs. So I'm picking up 3 15-ohs, and I just pass through the middle Eureka in the next sequence, just like that. And here in the corners, I'm going to use a single 11-oh instead. So on the shorter sides of the octagon, I'm going to use the 11-ohs. Another 11-oh in through the middle Eureka in the sequence of 3. Another one. And 2 more. So it's going to be 5 11-ohs on those sides here. And now 3 15-ohs connecting to the next middle Eureka on the longer side. Another 3. 3 more in here. Now an 11-oh. Second one. Third. Fourth. And the last one. Now 2 more sequences of 3 15-ohs. Now, as you can see, we have some gaps like this one here, and then here. And in between those, we're going to be adding 15-ohs and 11-ohs. So right here, between the 3 15-ohs that I just added and the first 11-oh in here on the shorter side, I'm going to add a 15-oh. Another 15-oh here. Now 2 11-ohs. 1 and 2. Have 15-oh in between these 11-ohs here. Now 15-ohs in between the sequences of 15-ohs that we added previously. Now 2 11-ohs on the shorter side. Now just some 15-ohs left to finish the row. And for my last one in this row, I'm passing through the 3 15-ohs. Now you can go on filling up those spaces in between the beads that protrude a little bit, but you don't have to. This is absolutely enough to keep our big stone in place. And to start a new row, I want to be coming out of some of these delicas in the main bezel. So I just want to go there diagonally through the beads that I added. Alright, now to determine where in the bezel you want to be coming out of, you just look at the bottommost 15-oh that you added, so the one at the bottom of that dip here, and you want to come out of the bead right underneath it, or as you look at it right now, right above it here. So this is the bead that you want to be coming out of, and this is the row that we're going to use for our next row of beads. So we're going to be using, maybe I'll show it like this, it's going to be easier. I'm coming out of this bead right here, and we're going to be going through every second bead here. So this one next, then this one. So you want to have a little space in between them, right? Okay, so what I'm gonna pick up is finally our Chinese rondelle beads, and on top, I'm putting on an 11-oh. And I want to slide down my rondelle bead and go right back through it and through this delica in this row. It's not going to be easy, it's going to be a little tricky because it's in the middle of the bezel, so you don't really have anywhere to go with your needle, but you're just going to wiggle through like that. And when you pull it tight, this is what you have. Now I'm going to pick up a single Eureka, and I'm going to go through the next bead in this row. So this one here, just like this. Now another rondelle and 11-0. I'm going to go back through the rondelle and go through the next Eureka right over here. A single Eureka now through the next bead, rondelle 11-0, Alright, so after I add that final Eureka, I'm coming out of the bezel right under the first Chinese rondelle that I added, so I go through that rondelle now and through the 11-0 on top of it. Now is the fun part. We're going to be adding seed beads, and when you're up there, you're going to start with 3 15-0s, then an 11-0, and then you're going to go through the Eureka that's in between the rondelles that we just added in the previous row, just like that. And I'm going to go through the 11-0 upwards so that it's kind of fastened to that Eureka in between the rondelles. Now I'm going to add 3 15-0s and go through the 11-0 on top of the next rondelle, and that's sort of what you get. Now 3 15-0s and 1 11-0 to add on the other side of this rondelle. I go through the Eureka, now upwards through that 11-0 here, making sure it's nice and tight. 3 more 15-0s and through the 11-0 on top of the rondelle. And you just go on like this all the way around. These are going to be my last 3 15-0s in this row. Now it doesn't look like much, but to give this a little bit more substance, we're going to do the very same thing, only on the back. So I'm coming out of this 11-0 on top of the rondelle here. So I'm going to pick up 3 15-0s and an 11-0. Same thing, and I'm going to go through this same Eureka in between this and the next rondelle and up through that 11-0, 3 15-0s, through that same 11-0, 3 15-0s and 11-0, through the Eureka, back up through the 11-0. This is automatically going to push the 15-0s on this side a little bit towards the front, and this will also create this kind of little pocket in here that will later fill with some more rondelles. So I'm just going to continue on in the back. Quite a useful tip if you cannot quite come out of the Eureka in the back. Just go to the front like this. I'm coming out in the front and then going back like this, just go through that 11-0 again. Okay, now I noticed my thread was about to end, so I just added a new one. I'm gonna use a new half a wingspan of thread. And I want to start somewhere around the middle so that when I finish this row, I'm close to add the bail. So I'm just going to go up some of those beads, like before the middle there. And I'm going to tie a knot somewhere around here. And continue forward through my beads. And I want to end up coming out of one of the 11-0s on top of the rondelle beads here. So that's where I want to be coming out of, right here. And what I'll add is delica, rondelle, delica. So like this. And I'm just gonna go through the next 11-0 on top of the next rondelle here. And when you pull it tight, the rondelle should pop very nicely, like in between those seed beads that you just added, and it's gonna push them kind of away from each other so that they end up in this nice kind of shape. Alright, next delica, rondelle delica. And again, just through the next 11-0, and you kind of push it down a little bit so that it ends up nicely in there. Another sequence through the 11-0. Push it down just a little bit. There's my last rondelle right here, but wait, that's not done yet. We're about to add a final touch, which is going to be delica in between each two delicas that we just added. So I'm just going through the delica, rondelle, delica. And this new one will go right on top of the 11-0. And I can add another one in here. It might feel a little tight here on the sides, but as these side delicas straighten up, they're gonna make just enough space for the middle one to pop in. Once you've added all the delicas in this final row, I recommend you go through that row again, so through all 3 delicas and the rondelle, just to reinforce the final row until you reach this point here. So up top here, you have a single rondelle and 2 sets of 3 delicas. And I think we're gonna add a simple herringbone stitch bail here, but with a little bit of a twist. So what I do is I pick up 3 delicas, 1 11-0, 3 delicas, and I go through the next delica in here. Right, so this is what I have. Now I want to turn right back, but I don't want to go through too many beads, so I just go under all of those beads in here above that rondelle bead. I just make sure that this goes directly next to the 11-0 here. And I just go right back through that delica in that 3. Now I went through that delica, and I'm gonna add 3 delicas, 11-0, 3 delicas again, and go right back through the delica on the other side so that I have 2 of those triangle sections, one in the front, one in the back. This is the top view. I'm gonna do the same over here, so I'm just gonna go under all of those beads, maybe to the front this time. I'll make sure that my thread is gonna go right next to this 11-0, right through that delica bead here, the one that's originally in the 3. And I'm gonna go up this first half of this sequence that I added as the first one until I'm coming out of the 11-0. And now we're gonna start our herringbone. So I just add 2 beads, go through that 11-0 so that we have this sort of a triangle in here. I'm gonna go back up one of the 11-ohs that I added. I'm gonna pick up two 11-ohs. I'm gonna go down this second 11-oh. I'm gonna go through that 11-oh in the original triangle sequence and back up through two of the 11-ohs here. I'll pick up two more and I'll go down just one 11-oh like this and back up through two. So one of those that I just added, and so on and so forth. So I just continue adding two and going down and back up until I reach the length that I want my veil to be. Alright, I think this is enough. I don't want the veil to be too big because I'm about to prepare a very delicate and dainty chain for it. So when you've reached your length, you're just going to bend it over here in whichever side your thread is coming out on. You're just gonna go through that 11-oh in the middle of the triangle sequence, then back up through two beads at first, then down two beads and that 11-oh. Now to reinforce that, I'm gonna go up one bead and down again, and through that 11-oh and the sequence of delikas. Now you just find a good spot to make a knot, weave in your tail, and the pendant's ready. Now I'll make my chain, and there will be a video on how to make that chain, but that will be for our email VIPs. So if you want to watch it and if you want to learn how to make the chain, don't forget to subscribe to our emails, because in our emails you get links to exclusive tutorials such as the one for this chain. Now here is the finished necklace. Doesn't it look lovely with that green stone? And the back looks kind of pretty too. And as you can see, I added beaded chain, quite elegant, quite nice. And you can watch a tutorial for it in our VIP playlist that you can have access to if you're our email VIP. And to subscribe for our emails, just follow the link in the description of this video. All of the supplies to make this can be found at Eureka-exclusive.com, of course, and the full list will be available under the first link in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next one. Bye!